going on, all you wonderful A-plusters out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again with another review for you guys, this time talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That's right, it is the conclusion to the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, and the ending I can definitely confirm without spoiling anything. I can definitely say that if we do get another Guardians of the Galaxy movie after this, it will definitely feel more like a spin-off than anything else, and that is totally fine with me because this is a perfect, to my opinion, a perfect way to kind of end this trilogy. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is a lot better than Volume 2. I don't think it hit me quite as much as the first one, but that was because the first one was something very unique when it first came out, and I don't think you really could recapture that. In fact, I think that if you try to recapture the magic of the first Guardians movie, you end up with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which to my opinion was nowhere near as good as the first one. In fact, it felt like a huge step backwards for me in a lot of ways, but Guardians of the Galaxy 3 luckily improved on everything I didn't really like about the second one, but kept everything that I thought worked very well, and what we got here is a very solid conclusion because of it. The big thing that this movie gets right is something that we got to see a little bit of in Avengers Infinity War, and of course in Guardians of the Galaxy the Holiday Special. These characters really feel like they've changed over time, and it doesn't feel like they're completely rewritten different characters. No, I mean, it feels like they've grown, they've evolved, and the characters that we now see in this movie, in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, they don't feel like the same ones we saw in the first Guardians of the Galaxy. They feel like, you know, they've matured so much more. They feel like they've definitely learned from their past mistakes, and they've grown into, you know, better people for the most part. It's really fascinating, especially like just looking at the very beginning, seeing how what they do now is more just they're helping people for the sake of helping people rather than doing it all for money. Something that I also think is kind of unique, one way they really show how much the team isn't the same as they were in the first movie, is that if you remember from the events of course, Avengers Endgame, we now have Gamora back, but it's not the same Gamora that we unfortunately lost in Avengers and Infinity War. Here we have a Gamora pre-Guardians of the Galaxy, like right before the events of that movie. And because of that, you know, the thing that I find very fascinating is that she doesn't really see herself fitting in with the Guardians of the Galaxy, which makes sense because at this point she's more lost than they are. You know, she's just trying to kind of figure out who she is, whereas the Guardians of the Galaxy have all kind of figured it out for themselves at this point. So to me, it makes so much sense why she doesn't really fit in with this new crew, and instead she ends up kind of hanging out with a bunch of Ravengers. She's basically a Ravenger during the events of this movie. And again, that makes a lot of sense for her character. Now, another character, one that is basically the main focus of this movie, which I'm sure none of you are going to be surprised to hear about. If you watch the trailers or listen to any James Gunn interview, you know that this movie is really mainly about Rocket Raccoon. This is the movie where we finally get his full backstory, and something that I got to give you guys a warning here is that it is really dark, which didn't surprise me so much. It more just it surprised me on how emotionally gripping they were going to make it, rather than just kind of giving us some vague details here and there. They show us a lot of it, and it makes the High Evolutionary, the main villain who's been experimenting on Rocket Raccoon this whole time, it makes him like just one of the most easy to hate Marvel villains out there. And speaking of the High Evolutionary, he's got to be one of the highlights of the movie for me. So, you know, a lot of times when it comes to Marvel villains, the ones that they get right are usually the ones where they have, you know, some perspective that you could kind of see, or you could kind of get behind in one way or another. Just the way they're going about it isn't exactly, you know, the right way. The Marvel villains that basically have somewhat of a good intention in their mind. So villains like Thanos, Killmonger, even Namor, you know, to name a few. But here we get a villain with zero redeeming qualities, nothing good about him at all. And yet that's what kind of makes him so intriguing, because he's so entertaining every time he's on screen, terrifying at the same time. But like I also kind of appreciate how much he believes his own delusions, to the point where where he makes like entire planets of civilizations just to destroy him, so he can do that as like a simple experiment. This guy basically is like the big definition of playing God, and he just basically has like the biggest ego. It's kind of ironic. The last main villain for the Guardians of the Galaxy was called Ego, literally the living planet. Here we have a human that might have the biggest like metaphorical ego I think I have ever seen, and yeah, I don't want to say too much more about him. I'll just say that very creepy. If body gore like kind of creeps you out, this villain's perfect. It never goes too much beyond PG-13, obviously, because this is a movie that is definitely meant for everyone. But it does get pretty close to like something that you would normally see in a horror movie. But of course, they find a way to fit it into a superhero movie and not give it an R rating. And the way they do it, I'll just say this: if you like cute animals, you're going to be really, really disappointed. But that being said, again, great villain, solid cast all around. And again, the fact that everyone in this movie gets an arc, I think is just incredibly impressive. And I think that really covers like all the things that work really well about this movie. I want to say more, but the problem is that it would get into spoiler territories if I did that. So, basically trying to rank this movie without getting into spoilers. Again, I'd say not quite as good as the first one, but miles better than the third one. Do we need a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 4 going forward? Personally, I don't think so. I actually think this movie ends on a very solid note that, gives everyone the perfect send-off. And while, yes, there is technically room for spin-offs and a fourth Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I'm not in a hurry for it. If they really want to do it sometime like years in the future, okay, I'll probably watch it, but I'm not in a hurry. Give it like 5, 6, 7 years, and then maybe I'll go see the next Guardians movie. But for now, I think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is a perfect conclusion to this trilogy, and I really look forward now to seeing what James Gunn does now that he is in charge of DC. But at the end of the day, of course, these are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so definitely let me know your thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in the comments below, but keep them spoiler free. If you want spoiler questions about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 answered, definitely tune in this Sunday to A+ Hero Report. That is where we will be answering all kinds of questions, including spoiler questions about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, but of course, guys, above all, don't forget to keep it A+, and I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.